To solve word problems algebraically, we need to introduce variables. The very first thing I will say is this: be thoughtful in the choice of letter for your variable. It's true that in algebra, the math that we do does not depend on the letter at all. Nevertheless, you will make your life easier and you will help yourself by choosing a meaningful letter. It will be helpful for you to choose a variable that, for example, begins with the same letter of the name of the person or thing for which it stands. Don't pick plain old X. This is a classic mistake that people make in word problems. They automatically pick X. And then what happens is there are a bunch of variables in the problem. They pick X for one of them, they solve, and then they get X and they're wondering, all right, well now I have this number. What is this number? Is this the answer, or do I have to use this to find the answer? So they don't know once they get the value what it is that they've found. That's why it's much more helpful to pick letters that would represent the different items or different people in the situation. Here's the beginning of a sample problem. I don't have the whole problem here, but here we have three women, Sarah, Mary, Helen. If I pick X for the salary of one of the women, I may correctly solve for it, but when I get that number for X, how will I know whether it answers the question? I'll get that X, then I might be wondering, now wait, did I just find Sarah's salary, or Mary's salary, or Helen's salary? For this question, S, M, and H would be much better variables for the weekly salaries of these three women. That way, if I find S, I know exactly what I found. That sort of thing. Other considerations in choosing a variable. Sometimes it can be helpful to assign a variable for the smallest value and then express everything in terms of that. Sometimes it can be helpful to assign a variable for the target value, what the question is asking. And the advantage of doing this is if you choose the target value as your variable, then as soon as you find the value, you're done. You've answered the question. Also, if all the quantities in the problem are related to a single quantity, if everything is expressed in terms of a single quantity, make this conceptually central quantity the variable and then relate everything to that. Here's a practice problem. Pause the video and then we'll talk about this. Okay, at Greg's Groceries, a half-gallon container of organic milk costs $1.50 more than a half-gallon container of orange ice cream. Elliot bought 7 half-gallon containers of orange juice and 3 half-gallon containers of organic milk, spending $27 for all 10 containers. How much does a half-gallon container of milk cost? And so here, we're looking for milk. So first of all, I'm going to pick M for that. That's going to be that's my target value. In other words, if I find the value of M, I've answered the question. Now notice that the other variable, the price of juice, well, juice is $1.50 less than milk. Milk is more, so juice is less. So J equals M minus 1.5. And so everywhere where I would have a J, I can just substitute M minus 1.5, and I can write everything in terms of M. So the total price would be M, the price of milk, times 3, and then the price of juice times 7. And if we add up all those together, it should equal 27. So the price of juice times 7 plus the price of milk times 3 equals $27. So that's the single equation, and all we have to do now is solve that equation for M. We're going to distribute, and notice that part of that distributing, we're going to have to multiply 7 times 1.5. Let's think about this over on the side. 7 times 1.5, well, 1.5, I could write that as 1 plus 0.5. Well, 7 times 1 is 7. And 7 times 0.5, 7 times a half of 7 is 3.5. Well, now I just have to add those, and I get 10.5. So 7 times 1.5 is 10.5, so we can use that. So now let's distribute. We get 7M minus 10.5 plus 3M equals 27. Let's first combine the 7M plus the 3M, combine the like terms there. We get 10M minus 10.5 equals 27. Add 10.5 to both sides, and 27 plus 10.5 is 37.5. Now to solve for m, all we have to do is divide by 10. And of course, dividing by 10, we're just sliding the decimal place one place to the left. So m equals 3.75. Or in other words, a half-gallon container of organic milk costs $3.75. That's the answer. Here's another practice problem. Pause the video and then we'll talk about this. All right, so you might be tempted to use variables s, j, and p, but notice that everything is in terms of the fine. And so even though that's not the target value, it's going to make sense to pick one variable for the fine because we can express what everyone paid in terms of the fine. So I'm going to pick f for the fine. Pick f for the fine, then we can express everything else in terms of that variable. So we're told that Joe paid $3 more than 1/4 of the fine. So f over 4 plus 3. Peter paid $3 less than 1/3 of the fine. So f over 3 minus 3. And then Sam paid half the fine, $4 less than half the fine. So that's f over 2 minus 4. And so all three of those shares should add up to the whole fine. In other words, if we add up this, this, and this, they should add up to f. So we'll just write that as a single equation. That's the equation for f. Just all the three contributions added add up to the whole fine. Well, first of all, the plus 3 and the minus 3, those cancel. So we have a lot of fractions here. And life would be much easier if we got rid of the fractions. So we should multiply by something that will allow us to clear the fractions. And this is, you may remember this from the lessons on fractions. If we multiply by the least common multiple of the denominators, the least common multiple of the denominators is 12. 12 is the lowest number that's divisible by 2 and by 3 and by 4. So we multiply every single term by 12. Well, 12 times f over 4 would give us 3f. 12 times f over 3 would give us 4f. 12 times f over 2 would give us 6f. And of course, 4 times 12 is 48. And then, of course, the f on the other side becomes 12f. I just add these. 3 plus 4 plus 6 equals 13. Add 48 to both sides. Subtract 12f from both sides. 13f minus 12f is just f. So f equals 48. So now we found the value of f. We have found the value of the fine. But that's not the answer. That's not what the question is asking. It's asking how much did Sam pay? Well, Sam paid half the fine. Well, half is 24. He paid $4 less than half the fine. Half is 24, so he paid $4 less. Sam paid $20. And incidentally, if you're curious, Joe paid $15 and Peter paid $13, and that's how they covered the fine. In summary, do not use genetic variables. Choose variables that will help you keep track of the numbers that in the problem. So the worst thing you can do is just pick x, because then you'll be wondering once you find x, what did I find? Sometimes it helps to choose the smallest value as the variable. Sometimes it helps to choose the target value as the variable. And if all the values are related to one quantity, choose that central quantity as the variable.